Hey everybody, Caleb here, and here I am. I think we're live. I think the mic is working. I think everything should be working as it should be. This is always the most stressful part. Making sure everything's up and running and as it should be. I think so. But today I've got this Dean guitar here. This is let's see. What do we know about this Dean guitar? It is a model Exotics RGE GNON, something like that. This thing, it's got a couple of things that are wrong with it. Just a couple of things to fix. Not a whole lot of crazy stuff going on, but a few things. Of course, right now I'm remembering all the stuff I forgot to get together before I got started. But there's a few things we can do together and try to get a little bit of work done, and hopefully just do some Q&A if you got them, and catching up if we can do that too. I'm going to go ahead and throw us onto the overhead camera because that works easier for me to show everything that's going on. I have a hard time getting everything centered. There's not a whole lot that's like very blatantly obviously wrong here. There's a crack, or a not really a crack, but a chip right here in the top. Since that's going to be the dry time thing, I'm going to try to get that done first. So we will throw some glue in there. Assuming my glue bottle works. I want to make sure I do this fairly well. Let me grab everything. So I can actually get my pick just barely underneath there. I'm just going to moisten it. Hopefully that little bit of water will help wick some glue in there. And we're going to squeeze some glue in there. You pump it, that helps work the glue back in where it should be, all the way to the back. I'm just kind of pumping it to try to get nice coverage. And we should be looking good. I'll grab a little piece of cloth. Just finish cleaning that up. Alright, I'll clamp that down. That should be the first thing that we've got done. Alright, first little thing. It's done. Getting that clamped down. That was a big thing. There's still a little bit of area that's now missing some finish. Once this is dry, I can just do like a little drop fill, I think, with some finish. And that should be good. As for the rest of the finish, it's kind of dirty. I think while I've got some water out, I'm going to lightly dampen this cloth and start kind of cleaning it up. While I do that, I'm starting to look at chat here and see who we've got, making sure that everything's running well. If everything is running well, I hope you guys will tell me, and if it's not, I hope you tell me that too. jumping back to see how we're doing. She's looking a little slow. So I want to make sure that we're actually live here. That's my Uncle Dan there, says good looking guitar. This is his guitar that I'm working on, and it's gonna be. Eric said all good audio is a little low. Okay, well, I'm probably just a little bit far from the microphone. Come on. This has been a big improvement just doing this little bit. There was a couple of big smudges and just a little dusty parts that a little bit of moist cloth is helping out. Beyond that, there's a couple of things with the saddle. I'm not real thrilled with how far that's moving around. The frets are a little dirty, so is the fretboard. I'd like to polish those up. I want to make sure they're level, though. As for stuff we're going to try to do today, the neck strap button needs a little bit of a touch-up. I think we'll be pretty good if we can get all that stuff done. Yeah, that's looking good already. Very, very cool. Okay, so I took this apart already. I've got all the buttons, all of the bridge pins pulled out and sitting to the side. They seem to be okay, but the saddle, I noticed when I picked this up, the saddle is, when it had strings on it, was leaning forward really badly. So I'm kind of curious what we can do about this. This has kind of an interesting pickup setup on it. It has so there's a bunch of shims underneath here as well. There's also, so this pickup, you can see, has grooves in it that fit, well, the saddle has grooves in it that fit into this pickup. So it has to be fairly specifically shaped to go in here, this pickup setup. So I'm still trying to think about what I can do to maybe tighten this up a little bit. As well, there is a ton of shims underneath that thing. Eric says, how do you fancy making a new bridge in that shape? I would definitely not really want to do that. This shark tooth shape, making one by hand would not be lots of fun. And by hand, I mean even with tools. I mean not machining one, having a machine that makes them. Because I'm sure that's how this was done. Yeah, there's a few shims in here. One, two, three, four, five, 6 shims. I don't think I'm going to be putting these back in there. I think we're going to come up with another solution. But because of this this pickup setup, I'm not just going to make a new saddle to drop in there. This saddle slot is already really wide, so I'm going to try to keep the pickup. I think we're just going to make a piece of a one-piece shim to drop in, so we don't have 7 little pieces of plastic floating around in there. I think that should help out. As for this wobbliness in here, I'm wondering if we can't do something about that. Upcast Animal asks what the shims are used for. That's when the, so if I were to set this back in there, just the way this is, this saddle is going to be way too low. We're going to have strings sitting on the frets. All these plastic things are used, and they're probably from the factory, to raise this back up so that we actually have enough height to play this thing. Typically, what I would like to do is make a whole new saddle. I want to make a whole new saddle that's exactly the right height with no shims to kind of have to build it back up. But because this has this pickup in here, I'm going to need to put some kind of shim in there. I've got a piece of rosewood made that's going to be fairly close. I think it needs just a little bit more shaping to get in there. And then that will be a one-piece wooden shim that can go in there. And hopefully that'll help tonally. And I know it's going to help hold everything together better, being one solid piece, not plastic. And get it right at the right playing height. Because of this pickup setup, if you have to adjust saddle height, it's going to be off of the shim, not off of the saddle. What I'd like to know is what's moving around in here. Is it the saddle itself, or is it the pickup inside of this kind of plastic sleeve it's got? Because if it's just the pickup moving inside the plastic sleeve, I could probably slide a piece of something in there to keep that from happening. Alternatively, is it the whole plastic sleeve inside the slot? Here's where we come down to some of this problem solving, is what is causing my issue. It's not, there's not enough gap to get one of these pieces of plastic in there, at least not at this end. So I don't think it's between the black piece that holds the saddle, the kind of sleeve, and the saddle slot. I think it's fairly good. So then, are we talking about this piece here is moving around too much? I don't really think that's it. I think this white plastic piece is our problem child. Yeah, I'll try to get a better camera angle here to kind of show you what's going on. So here you can see this whole thing here, I think. I think what our problem is this white saddle is just moving a little bit too much. And I don't want it to be able to lean forward. That's putting forward pressure on this, which is going to cause problems, especially, you see how thin this bridge is here. We could end up with a crack here because of this forward pressure on that wood. And we don't want that. I want downward pressure, not, you know, a whole lot forward. So I'm not entirely sure what to do to shim that. It's actually thinner where it fits into the pickup. I wonder if we couldn't do something to make that a little bit better. I'm going to think about this for a little while we work on something else. but I think maybe that would do it if I took, for example, a piece of something paper thin, glued it across here, notched it back out, and let it go back in without keep it straight. Maybe. I'm going to think about that. That's not exactly what I like to do the most, but it may be the best fix for this particular instrument. I can go back in there. I can get it out from the inside. I think we're going to work on the frets first. Fret job is usually the easiest job to do first. So I'm going to transition into working on that. I want to get my fret rocker to make sure that this is all level. Found it. So I'm going to go through here and run my fret rocker across these frets. I've already noticed I've got a little bit of a high fret on the second one. What I'm doing is I take this kind of funny shaped thing and run it across 3 frets, and if it rocks, then I have a high fret, and if it doesn't, we're doing good. But I think you can hear it. We have a pretty high fret. I think we're going to need to level these things. Now the reason why it's this funny shape is you only want to touch 3 frets at a time. So as you get closer, you have to go to the smaller edges to not overlap frets. Yeah, we're going to need a quick leveling. That's good. So I've got enough rock in here that I know that some of them are a little higher than the other ones. So I'm going to level them. I'm going to use my fret leveling file, which you may kind of recognize. It's now black. I stained the wood doing something or other to it, and I really didn't like the way it looked, so now I just painted it black. But it's the same one that I've been using since I started doing this. I just painted it black because I stained the wood and didn't like the way it looked. Couldn't get it out. So I'm going to very carefully level these. I'm really not putting any pressure down with my hand. The weight of the file is doing all of the pressure. If you start pushing down, you will eat through these frets very quickly, and I don't want to do that. I did, before we got started, make sure that the neck was straight. Check the truss rod adjustments. I want to make sure that the truss rod is fairly straight so that we don't have any crazy bow. Because if we get started here and the neck is like this across here, and I start doing this, they're going to be totally straight while the neck is not. Then when we do straighten the neck out, the frets are not going to be right. So that's already been done. That is just about perfect. You can really feel the high frets when you're doing this. If you're really feeling for them, you can hit where it drags, and you know you've hit a high fret. If it's running fairly smoothly, nice and evenly, you know you're doing pretty good. Josh asked, what's the year on this guitar? I am not totally sure. I've got the serial number, but I don't have the quick answer to that one. It can't be that old. Something about the electronics says early 2000s, late 90s to me. But it could be newer than that. That's a rough guess. I really am not sure. I'm just making sure we don't have any fret sprout, and it's not too bad, but it just needed a little bit of a touch-up. But that's looking really good. Those look level, they feel level. Now what I need to do is recrown them. Since I've leveled them, I've put a nice flat plane across the frets. So that's going to make strings buzz if you fret them down and they're flat. What we want is a nice crowned shape, so it's like a dome on top, so we only hit at the peak. So we'll come through here with my crowning file and just knock a crown into them. It may help to get a little bit above it. I can see, it's hard to show on camera, but I can see where the filing is. The filing from the crowning file leaves a different kind of shine than the filing from the leveling file. So I can see that flat get smaller and smaller until it's just, you know, just a tiny little line right down the middle. And that's what I'm looking for. You could do the same exact thing by, before crowning, taking like a black Sharpie and running it across there. And then as you start crowning, you can see that line get thinner and thinner. Still not happy with this thing. I gotta find a better solution for a neck holder. The other thing, if you had an issue you could do with a crowning file is kind of knock the edges off of these to help round. Crowning file works good for that, especially if you've taken just a little bit of the bulk off of the bottom of this crowning file, like this one is. I think you can see it here, if it will focus. There's a shiny edge across here and here. It's been kind of removed just a little bit to help take off the parts that aren't the file. It helps you make this a multi-tool, not just a single-use thing. This one I am pushing a lot harder than I was with the leveling file. I still am not pushing crazy hard, because if I keep on filing, I'm going to end up with a lower fret than all the other ones, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to take any height off the top of these frets. I just want to reshape them. Up here I didn't hit very hard, but I can tell they have some flats on them, so I'm just crowning. It's looking pretty good. I think I can start polishing these frets now. Let's see what I have in sandpaper here. So I'm going to start with a piece of 600 to start polishing these frets. The 600 really works out any of the file marks from leveling and crowning. And the board is a little dirty. You can see it there as I move the light across. If it was really clean, I might tape it up or get out a fret guard to help prevent my sandpaper from hitting it. But it's really not something I'm going to worry about. It's going to take way more time to do that than it is to do what I'm about to do, which is just hit it with this and then come back and clean it up when I'm going to clean it up anyway. So 600 sandpaper is where I'm starting. And I am going to kind of hit the edges as well. It helps kind of round those corners. So as you're running your hand down there, it just kind of rounds that over. And then this is the part in the usual videos where I speed through it, because I want to make sure that I get this really good, and it can take just a little bit of time to do that. Alright, I think those are already looking better than before I started. So I'm going to take this piece of 1200 and start coming through, and this is where it starts to get some shine on them. Starting at 600 really isn't enough to take any height off of the frets, so I don't have to worry about that very much. And especially once I've hit this 1200, it's very unlikely I'm going to sand through any height. So I can push pretty good. I'm going to work on these frets. Make sure that I get them very well sanded and polished out. Alright, that's looking good. Yeah, so at this point, the board probably does not look great. It's kind of gray, it's got a bunch of stuff on it, but those frets are looking very even all the way through, and they're starting to get kind of reflective. What I'm going to do next is move on to my micro polishing pads, which I believe are on the floor. So these are little, I say micro polishing pads. I think that's what they're actually called. I bought these out of the model making section in an arts and crafts store. There's a link in the description to some that are on Amazon. I'm fairly certain they're just about the same. The ones on Amazon are color coded. These are not. They're all gray. So I go through and I mark with Sharpie. Like 1, and this one has 2. And so on, because they say what they are on them, but I end up rubbing it off. So this way I can keep track of how they go in order. It goes from 3,200 to 12,000, but it's not the same grits as sandpaper. They have their own proprietary grit system. So I'm not exactly sure what the numbers really mean, but I start with the lowest one after 1,200, after I do 1,200 sandpaper, and just start working my way up. They work in the exact same way as sandpaper. I'm just polishing them out, trying to get it to look good. a hold of it. At this point, some questions would be great, because I'm going to be sanding here for a few minutes. So if anybody's got any pertinent questions, great topics to discuss. Eric says, my carpenter mate made me a neck support like a certain company's rock and roller neck rest. Works really well for me. I made myself one, and it's too short for most acoustic guitars. My biggest complaint is that this holds it too high. It's in my way. I can't get around it. If it would... I'd even be okay with it being wider if it would just not come up the neck quite as far. Sometimes, if I get really annoyed with it, I'll set it this way. And it sets it just on the edges. And this way I can actually get around it, and it'll actually hold it up. John Washburn says, I enjoy watching someone else work. Me too. These are starting to get kind of shiny. I'm liking the way they're looking. Josh asked, what's my favorite thing to fix on a guitar? Actually, I really like doing like the chips and the cracks, because if you get them looking good, then they look really good. And with the way I do them, the way that Jerry does them, with wood glue and getting everything lined up right. So even if you don't get it quite right the first time, you can always take it apart and make it look better. Talking about cracks, I got sent a mandolin today, and there is a crack on it that was fixed with super glue, and it is kind of ugly. And there's not a whole lot I can do about it at this point and make it look any better, because if I start scraping that super glue off, it's very, very likely I'm going to go through finish. Tim asked how the shop is going, the one in the garage. It is not going very quickly. It's finally starting to get warm. It's really only been warm enough to be outside for, 2 weeks this year so far? So it's hard to be outside working when it's cold, and the other thing is that I have to be in here doing the stuff that makes money. So it's hard to get time and weather to get out there and get going on it. David says he's got a bean bag that's just the right size. Might have sand in it. It's weighted nicely. You can adjust it from any to any height. Yeah, talking about the neck rest. I have seen that. I think Luthier's Mercantile has a leather pouch that's full of sand, I want to say. So it'll fit any neck, and it's nice and weighty, so it won't move. It looks nice, but I know the one at Luthier's Mercantile is very expensive. John Washburn asks, can I fix a ding in the wood? It depends on how deep it is. Sometimes you can steam them out, but more often than not, the only way to fix dings, impressions, are filling it with finish. And it's not always the best looking option. Usually I just leave it. My Yamaha has a ding in it. It's the only flaw in that Yamaha, and it makes me very, very sad. It's about here or here, but there's not a whole lot to do with it. because usually if it's gonna be the ding, it's probably in the finish and less of in the wood, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. I smashed my first finger on my right hand over the weekend, and now putting a lot of pressure on it, I can really feel it. So that was a little bit of a mistake. And the sanding is kind of feeling it. I didn't really have any problem playing guitar. Holding a pick was not a big deal, but when I went to go play bass on Wednesday at the church, I could feel that when I started playing with my fingers. It was like, all of a sudden, this really hurts. Almost done here. Once we're done here, I'll have to go get a good clean razor blade to clean this fretboard up. David asked if I tried the plastic razor blades. I have some. For a lot of things, they're good. What I like them best for is like cleaning up. If glue gets on finish, it works really good for that because the finish is usually harder than the plastic razor blade. I'm actually going to be scraping just a tiny amount of wood off of the fingerboard, so it's not really what I want for that. But I really like the plastic razor blades for their uses. There's one more of these. Or I like the plastic razor blades for spreading epoxy. That's another good thing that I use them for, but I don't do a lot with like two-part epoxy. I don't use them a whole lot, but when I do use them, I very much enjoy them. And I recommend that people have them around because when they have their uses, it's hard to beat them. Alright, that's just about perfect. David says, I use it to scrape off my leftover finger gunk when changing strings. Yes, I get that, because there's just a little bit of gunk in here, and that would probably take that off really well. These frets are getting shiny. You can see the light move across them there. Looking good. I'm going to go grab a razor blade. Got me a brand new one here. The nice thing about having everything put away is it's all put away. The bad thing about having everything put away is I have to go get it when I need it. I'm going to kind of move this so I'm kind of aimed at myself a little bit better. That generally helps me out as I'm starting to work the razor blade. Try to get where you can still see it. And I have to work across the radius. And it comes out a whole lot cleaner. You can already see the difference between this and that. So yeah, it's going to work really good for this. Coming back to the chat now. Tim asks, what are the best guitar strings? Well, I think that's kind of a matter of opinion. It depends on what you're wanting in a guitar string. Do you want them to last a long time? Do you want them to sound really good? What is sound really good for you? What kind of music do you play? I almost always use phosphor bronze strings, right? They're the EJ16s from D'Addario. That's the ones that I use for basically everything, unless somebody asks for something different. I know a lot of people like their coated strings because they last a long time. For me personally, down here in the basement, which is where all my guitars are, the humidity doesn't change very much, the temperature doesn't change very much, and strings last a really long time. So I don't really need the coated strings. And I don't really like the tone of them. It takes a really long time to wear the heavy coating off of the coated strings to get them sounding good, and then basically you've worn the coating off, so you may as well have gone uncoated anyway. Is how I think about it. Plus they're really expensive and I'm kind of cheap. But I know some people like them, and some people like them just the way they are, and that's fine if that's what you like. On the other hand, there are other kinds of strings you can do. I have some silken steel strings on one of my little guitars, and they're very, very mellow, very woody, which would be good for certain kinds of things. I would think finger picking would be really great on those silken steel strings on guitar. It's all a matter of what kind of sound you're looking for. The other thing I've noticed is there's one person I know who enjoys the coated strings the most. They also play their acoustic guitar plugged in most of the time. So I would have to think that would be part of it as well. Is that the acoustic tone is not necessarily all they're looking for. If you're teaching yourself how to play, I'm just looking at the chat. Tim says he's wondering because he's teaching himself how to play. I would definitely go for a lighter string rather than a heavier string. The EJ16s that I use are technically light. They're the highest is 12. I know there's lighter than that, but I think that's about perfect. I really wouldn't put anything other than light strings. The 12 gauge is the highest one on an acoustic guitar anymore. If you've built it yourself and you know it's strong enough to handle a heavier gauge, then you can. Obviously, you can go lighter, especially for learning. That's probably the way to go. And that's all about string gauge. There's some effects and sound there. The heavier strings are going to be a little bit louder, probably. But generally, I'm happy with the 12 gauge strings for acoustic guitars. And then electric guitars, I don't really have an opinion. My opinion doesn't count. Eric asked if I made the clamp. That would be that clamp down there. I have another one right behind me. And they're all of these ones. I have a few of these. I did not make these. I bought a bunch of wood from a guy who was doing this but was retiring. And he had a bunch of these clamps and a few other tools in with it. And I just bought all of it from him. And his name is on some of them. But I use the tar out of these. These are great. For doing little things like just, gluing up little cracks or things. I really enjoy them. And yeah, you could definitely home make these. I didn't make them, but you could. David says, I don't actually have a question. Well, David, I don't actually have an answer. But thank you for the super chat. Tim says, thank you. Thank you very much. I live in Wisconsin. Well, it's no problem, Tim. If you have any more questions, you can throw them out there. And if I don't know, I'm sure somebody will. That's the great part about doing this the sort of thing is there are a few things that I run into there. It's like, I really don't know if this is normal, if all of these have this. And there's not really a good way to tell, but inevitably somebody watching is going to know something. Almost done here. The last one is always the hardest one to get, because you can't go both ways. Alright, so we got that board cleaned up. I want to oil it yet still. I want to clean off any junk in the frets real quick. There's just a little bit of stuff put up against there. Nothing hard, just pieces. And if I knew what I had done with that pick that I just had, I'd do it with that. I do. Okay. I'm just going to knock off any dust. It's mostly dust. It's entirely dust. Problem of the neck block strikes again. Alright, that's looking good. David says, one of these days I'll have to increase my Patreon account. The problem is I keep buying more guitars. I have too many already. I need a 12-step program or something. No 12-step program. 12-string program. Yeah, I know the thing about buying guitars. I'm going to use some of this Be Good wood oil that I always use for these fretboards. I really like it. And it's safe for me to put my fingers in. Speaking of which, I was watching a video the other day, and I don't remember what it was, but somebody was getting out some wood oil, and they got out some linseed oil, some boiled linseed oil out of like one of the cans, and they just started putting their fingers in it. And it's probably fine, but I know that they put Japanese dryer in some of the boiled linseed oil, and I was like, I'm not sure that's really something I want to do. That darkens that up. I'll do the bridge as well. If you boiled your own linseed oil, I guess that'd be one thing, but not really what I'd be keen on. That's the nice thing about that stuff is it's basically butcher block oil. I mean, it's good for butcher blocks, which means it's food safe, so you're not worried about putting your fingers in it. Josh asked, does the bridge shape have an effect on sound? I imagine it would, but I know nothing of guitars. I mean, now we're getting into some dangerous territory. Does it have an effect on sound? A lot of people are going to tell you that everything has an effect on the sound, and they're probably right. Does it have a noticeable effect on sound? It might. This one might, because it's got some more bulk to it, so it won't let the top vibrate as much. If I took this bridge off, put a new one on that was traditional and didn't change anything else, I would say it'd probably sound a little different, but probably not all that noticeably different. There are plenty of other things that affect the sound far more than that. Gordon says hello. Hello, Gordon. Little J1 asks what my favorite guitar brand is. My favorite guitar brand. That is a loaded question. if we're talking about acoustic guitars, and like the one I recommend the most is Yamaha. When it comes to buying, especially like secondhand stuff, I definitely recommend going Yamaha. I think they have some really great vintage secondhand guitars that you can buy really cheap. And they can sound really good. If we're talking about high end, that totally changes things. John Washburn said perhaps a 12 fret program. That too. Davis says, I typically use Dunlop products at this stage. I've got several kits with different oils for the different tasks. I've never tried the Be Good oil. I'll have to order some as I see you and Jerry use it. Yeah, okay, so I have some of those Dunlop things. The little blue one that's for fretboard oil, I think. I don't know. I pretty much stopped using it when I started using this. I like this stuff. It doesn't make me feel oily. I'm not afraid to get it on me. Speaking of this, Troy, which you all should know from the videos, asked, but is the oil food safe? Because I said it a lot. I've said, and it's food safe. And it's food safe. So some of my friends who watch the videos, they give me a little guff about saying that it's food safe. So in case you were curious, it's food safe. I have tasted it. It doesn't taste great. But it is food safe. Alright, that fretboard is looking great. Show you here. Clean. Even. Good color. David says the Dunlop stuff is good, is food safe. Yes, I wouldn't want to eat it. Well, there we go. I don't recommend eating any of your guitar products, to be honest. Reminds me of Jerry talking about the semi-chrome polish. We'd always get a ton of people talking about how bad it is for you, and he said, well, I just use a little bit of it as mayonnaise substitute. I'm going to try to kind of dust this off a little bit more, and the headstock's a little bit dusty. It's looking good. I'm kind of skipping around here, but I see in the chat Andrew just joined from the UK. Hi, Andrew. Just caught the oil debate. It's got to be on it. Yes, it has some beeswax in it. It is, let's see. Does it actually tell me everything that's in it? Beeswax, mineral oil, anti-microbial fragrances, and other food-safe wood-preserving oils. They come in this 8 fluid ounce thing. I think there's a smaller version. I bought this at the beginning of last year, and I'm still not halfway through it. It does not take much. It's a shake it up before you use it and make sure it's good. But it's got a little bit of beeswax in it. You can feel it afterwards, even after I, kind of clean my fingers off. You can feel it. But I think it makes the board a little smoother. I think. Everybody's got their own personal things. Tim asked what the oldest guitar I have is. I don't know. I don't have that many old guitars. Most of the guitars I bought are fairly new. I guess I have a 70s electric, and then an acoustic I have no idea when it's from, because it doesn't have any labels on it. What am I going to do next? I think next I'd like to attack this strap button. You can see here there's some cloth shoved in there. I think we'll want to try and fix that. And decide how I'm going to set this down here. That'll be good. So I'm going to take that out. and start working on it. Andrew said he hasn't seen the Be Good oil in the UK, and Eric says Etsy UK has it. I'm trying to think about where I actually get it from. It's the there's only like one website I've actually seen it from, and it's definitely not in the UK. It's here in the US. It's on the bottle. That's the problem. I can't remember it, but it's on the bottle. Green River Woods. Yeah, greenriverwoods.com, I assume. It's also on the woodworkingshop.com, which I think is the Klingspor, or they're associated with them, is the woodworkingshop.com. I get their sanding catalog every month or so. Alright, so take this piece of cloth off here. See what's going on. That hole's not crazy large. Is it that we just can't get it tight enough? We may just need a small washer of some kind to tighten that up so we're not denting the finish. Let me see here. Yeah. I guess what we're going to do. I was worried that the hole was stripped, but that does not seem to be the issue. So I think I just want to put a small felt washer on there so we're not stripping, or we're not denting the finish with how tight I'm going to put that on there. Let me go grab something to do that. I gotta step away for just 1 second. Alright. Cut this up. So it's got a sticky side. I'm just going to stick it to the strap button itself. If I can get the back off of it. Stick that right on there. Very cool. Eric says he has 2 streams running. SpaceX is doing their Falcon 9 launch. I didn't know they were launching another one today. I knew they did last week, a little over a week ago. I know it didn't go up very high, but they said that that was intended. David says it's about $27 for the large 16-ounce bottle with shipping. I suspect a 16-ounce bottle will last your average guitar player many years, given what... Yes, I would 100% agree with that. A huge bottle would probably last you a lifetime, because you really don't need a lot of it, even if you just use like a pea size every time you change strings. Some people, that's a pea size every couple of years. Cough, cough, Troy. But... you really don't need much. Having trouble getting the screw through the hole with my felt on there. All right, stick that on there and screw her in. It's not wanting to go back in there. So with a little bit of felt on there, that should avoid the strap button from denting the finish as I tighten it up. But it shouldn't stick out any further than the strap button. So that's on there nice and securely, but that felt has a little bit of press in it, and it's soft enough that we're not going to scratch up or dent up that finish. And that's really good. So we got rid of this big piece of cloth. Got that on there. Big improvement. All right, what do I want to do next? Just doing a quick look through, feeling everything. All right, I guess we need to start looking at this saddle. I know it's going to need a shim, and I've got this piece made fairly closely. I need to get this in the hole now. So, go ahead and pull that back out. David asks what the model number is. I have, it says Exotics, RSEON or GN. Here, I'll see if I can just show you. Which way's the right way up? This way. It's kind of hard to see, but yeah. It says Exotics, RSE. It's either ON or GN. I suspect it's Exotics because of the rosewood back and sides and fingerboard. I also suspect that means that it's probably one of their more expensive models. I've got a flat edge on this end. I'm going to go try and round that off real quick on the disc sander so I can put the shim in there. So now our shim should be working a little bit better. It's just a little tight. We want it to be pretty close to perfectly fitting in there. The closer we get it to being perfect, the better the sound transfer is going to be. So I'm just taking a razor blade and kind of scraping the sides. I knew it was going to be close. I still got to leave room for that pickup. too thick, too wide. Down at this end. I did a little bit of measuring and making sure this was about right. This should be the same thickness as all of these shims put together, which is kind of ridiculous when you see it. Like, that thing looks pretty thick, but when you have all of these stacked up, it should be about the same. I think it is. Yeah. Kind of crazy that they needed a shim that thick in here. David says they're not that expensive. I'm not too surprised for a Dean. Deans aren't known to be super high end. But it'd just be nice to get it in a little bit better playing order. Alright, see what we got now. I think we're still floating. Tim asked what I thought of the Martin Backpacker guitar. Well, I'm not a real big fan of the way it sounds, but that's not really its purpose, if you ask me. Yamaha makes a little tiny guitar kind of similar, but it's actually the shape of a guitar. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're just looking for something to have to play because you enjoy playing guitar, then it works great for that. If you're looking to have something to play and sound good, that's not really what it's going to be. You're going to have to go for something bigger. I also know that from my standpoint, having a tiny guitar with a weird shape, the Martin Backpacker, in case you didn't know, is the one that kind of comes out. It's kind of fan-shaped. And it's small. It's very, very small. And it works good for backpacking if you want to, if you just want a guitar to play because you enjoy doing it. I wouldn't say that it's a great option for, sound. Eric says the Taylor GS Mini is a very good travel guitar. I think that's probably in the same vein. I know it's actually guitar shaped. I think I've seen it a few times. And it's fine for what it's trying to be, but it's a little more than that. The Taylors didn't sound too bad, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've played any of them little ones. John asked if I have any time or interest in checking out an old Harmony. I am extremely backed up at the moment. I've got a mandolin that came in today. This one, there are 2 guilds I have yet that I think I need to pull the neck on. Maybe both of them. I think there's something else. The list is getting longer. I went from not a whole lot to do to a whole lot to do very quickly. I think you may have emailed me, John, and I may not have responded. I'm sorry if anyone else has emailed me or called me and I haven't gotten back to you. It's been really busy all of a sudden this last week or so. Just like one thing after another, and it was very quick. Shaping this to get in there. That's looking better. There we go. So now we have a wood shim that fits the slot perfectly, is one piece, not plastic. Gets us where we want to be. And now that that's in there, I can really see how this is moving around in here. This is loose on this back edge by quite a bit. Not that much though. At least that much. Just looking back at the chat now, David said pretty soon you'll need an apprentice. Well, you know, pretty soon I'll need to be able to afford an apprentice. Help would be great, but being able to afford it is a whole nother thing. It's getting close. I'm not really liking having to put a paper shim in by any means. I don't like shoving paper into the saddle slot, but for now this is going to be the cheapest, most effective fix. I don't think with this saddle this is going to make that big a difference. Alright, well, it is less than 2 pieces of paper. It is 1 piece of paper thick. That's how much I can fit in there. John says patience is a virtue, talking about asking me for working on something. And thank you, but I thought it was funny. I said that exact phrase earlier today. It's funny that it's come up twice. The action was pretty good before I took the strings off of it. The strings were ancient. They had some black spots on them, so I wasn't about to leave those on there, but the action was pretty good, so I'm not super worried about that. I think the nut might need some adjustment, but the saddle side looked really good if I'd get the right orientation on that saddle. I think we're going to be looking good there. That's a little bit better. I think that is better. I think that has fixed some of it. It still wiggles a little bit, but I think that's just going to be kind of the way it is with this saddle. Because it's got so many pieces in there, and the pieces they had to make is not fitting perfectly. I think that I'm not going to get a whole lot better than that, which is kind of a bummer, but if I'm not going to get any better than that in the time that this guitar affords, that's how it's going to be. So let me get cleaned up just a hair. Josh says he volunteers. I assume he's talking about for help. I hope you like unpaid work, and I know, even more than that, what I'd really love for unpaid work is doing the business side, and I think somebody's got a degree in that. Josh is one of my, I think this is Josh, is one of my friends. So, you know, if you want to come work for free doing business side stuff, that'd be great. That is my least favorite part of doing all of this, is running the business side. I like working on the guitars. I like editing the videos. I like putting everything together. But The business part is the least fun part. So, I think we're not far off of, Josh is saying, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I still have finals week. You got it. You got it. I'm starting to talk about putting strings on here. I think these pins are flat on the edge, on the ends, and I really want to put a bevel on there so they hold the ball end where they should be. So I've got my file out. I'm just going to start filing away at these. I had to make me a new pin holder this week because the other one, the one I brought home from Jerry's, is full of pins. Imagine that. But I needed a new one, so I just got a block of wood out and drilled 12 holes in it. These are kind of hard. They're plastic, but they're really not liking the file. Eric says chainsaw time. I don't think I'd want to put my fingers this close to a chainsaw. So I've got these in order this way. That way they all go back in the way they should. Most of the time it really doesn't matter that much. Sometimes it really matters. They just do not want to go back in the other hole. So it's easier to just let them go back in the hole they came out of and not try to fight the odds. I'm thinking about going to find a different file. That's what I'm going to do. Alright, something with a little bit more bite. There we go. Now we're talking. I could have probably just taken these over to the disc sander, not the chainsaw, but the disc sander, and knocked these edges off. This gives me a little bit more control over angle and everything. And now that I got this file out, it didn't take me any time at all. And they're fairly smooth, so that's looking good. We should be done with this. I think we're in the realm of strings. I'm gonna go grab some strings. I started buying strings in bulk recently. Well, actually, I didn't really buy strings in bulk recently. I bought strings in bulk once. And it's been okay. This is probably the more cost-effective way for me to buy strings. Buy them in one big thing. These are still the EJ16s from D'Addario. They're the string that I like, so they're the string that I use. And here comes the other part that I always skip over in the videos. Stringing. And then tuning. I'll try to get this set up where I can actually do this. And maybe on camera. Eric says you mind those other fingers or all of your cords will be diminished. Talking about the our chainsaw. Or are you talking about my file? Even still, yeah, that's not... I haven't, no, yes. I haven't really run my fingers into too many power tools. However, while I was at Jerry's, I would sand the fingertips a whole lot. Like, if I was doing some, like, final thicknessing on, like, a saddle, I just set the sandpaper flat on my desk and just sand it, and I'd sand my fingertips raw. And I did that several times. That is not loads of fun. These tuners work. I like tuners that work. Find some cutters to cut the ends off. I'm very paranoid about my strings, so I always leave a little bit on while I'm still tuning up, because I'm always afraid that they're going to slip, and then I'm not going to have enough to get it back on there. But Tom says, wow, the string dispenser. Yeah, it's just a box. It's full of strings. This isn't cheap. It's like 25 sets of strings. But I figure I'm going to use them all. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So I may as well buy them in sets of 25. If it's more cost effective that way. String was on the microphone. Eric says it won't work without the colored strings. Nah. You just gotta do them by feel. You know, you just gotta feel how thick they are, and you'll just know. You mean you can't tell the difference between the B and the E string by feel? David says he thought he was excessive, generally buying 12 packs. I wouldn't buy any other string in this large of a pack, but because these are my favorite strings for acoustic guitars, and I do so many, it just made sense. I know that you can buy them in larger packs. I don't know if you can buy the D'Addario phosphor bronze ones, but I know you can buy strings in larger numbers than 25 at a time. Jerry had boxes of strings while I was down there. It was kind of a lot. Jeff said, what strings did I say I was using? They are the EJ26 from D'Addario. They are the phosphor bronze. Let's see, all the gauges are on here. Going 1st to 6th, it is 12, 16, 24, 32, 42, 53. That was really fast, but if you really need it, you can rewind the video. But yeah, it's the lights, I think. They are my preferred acoustic guitar string. Of course, if someone wants something different on their guitar that they send me, I will do it. I'm not going to say you have to use my guitar strings. But most of the time, this is what I use. Okay, I'm going to start on the outside. It's usually smarter to work from the outside in when you have no strings on there because it's harder to get to the little ones. And I just remembered that I still have a little bit of string on the high E string tuner. Tom said this is a 1 week supply for a touring guitar player. Yeah, I know some of them really, they're changing them every night. Of course, they put their strings through a lot more too than. I just mean environment. They can be out in the wet, hot and cold, hot and cold. It's not good for strings. David said, I've been playing for well over 5 decades. I sure as heck can't tell the difference by feel. I could do it by sight with some effort. I have no idea if I honestly could even come close. Like, between the B and E, it'd be hard to say. Eric says he can smell the difference. Yeah, you can. You just know the thinner gauge has that tiny bit of smell difference. Let me grab a pencil here. I'm gonna go ahead and graphite these high string slots. I'm just taking a mechanical pencil and working some graphite in there. That'll help the strings move smoothly through the slots. That's the part you don't get on a regular video. If it's not live, I cut out all the parts where I stumble over words. David said it's time for a blind test, and Eric said it won't work on a video. I mean, I could do a blind test. I kind of don't think, you guys are going to get anything out of it, though. And it'd be kind of hard to set up. The other thing that you guys didn't get to see was that the strings on this were wound a little backwards. When you're winding strings, you always want to start from the inside out. So, like on the D string, I want it to come up and around this way because it works from the inside out around the post. Same with the A and the E. But then as I turn the other way, I want them to come the other way. These were all wound the same way. It helps them line up in the nut so they move a little smoother. Eric says, how does Jerry do it? He's colorblind. Well, luckily, I think there are 2 of them that Jerry has a hard time telling the difference between, like the ball ends, but it's either like one that's wound and one that's not. It's 2 that are very obviously different. Okay, B string time. I stuck those pins in there, now I can't get them out. That's why we have a pin puller right nearby.
David said, talking about the blind test, well, not for us. We'd have to do it at home and use the honor system. I imagine that's going to go great. Because no one has ever lied on the internet. Eric says, I do enjoy watching Jerry's videos. He's taught me loads. I miss editing Jerry's videos. I like doing mine, but I gotta tell you, doing somebody else's is far more entertaining. David says, I can tell the difference between strings by feeling the individual atoms. I mean, yeah, I don't know what guitar player that's, worth listening to can't. What did I do with the string cutters? They're right here. If I look at the camera, then I can find them. G string. Come on. There we go. Alright, now time for the fun part. By the fun part, I mean the not fun part. Tuning. Once again, the part that I would cut out of a normal video, I'm going to try and leave that clamp on there while I tune this. It shouldn't be in my way too much. As we go here. Yeah, that'll do. So I'm going to start tuning this thing up. Camera's in my way, so I can't see chat. Alan asks, ever wonder why guitar tuners are lefty-tighty? Is that something you have an answer to? I haven't even thought about it. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm getting a little buzzing sound. I don't like it. From something. Something somewhere. Figured out what it is. I think. So this guitar has controls on it for the electronics. It's missing the battery cover, so I haven't quite got that sorted out yet. That's one thing that I'm going to have to do after we're done here, is go find a new battery cover for this. But it's vibrating some part of that. And if I hold it down, I can't hear it then. So it's something in there is vibrating when I hit that E string. Of course, it's not tuned all the way up yet, so that may go away once I get to actual pitch. I would think eventually I would get used to the anticipation of tuning. It hasn't happened. David is expecting a snap every time. Yes. I would figure that at some point you'd get over it. Hasn't happened yet. Not bad. Sounds like it's got a plastic saddle, doesn't it? Eric says sounds okay. I think you can hear it on the high end. Yeah. Sounds pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good. I'm not crazy about plastic saddles. I'm not crazy about this crazy pickup that's going on in here, but it's not bad for what it is. I need to check the string height at the first fret. So let's do that. We'll go back to above. Let me put some stuff away. I think this is the right one. Yeah, this is the right one. Eric says, nice looking bees, don't know how they do it for the price. Well, you know how they do it? They make them in China. Didn't say. It may not have been. I'm not saying this one was, but make them overseas for really cheap. That's good. So this is a 17 thousandths thick pick. At string tension, it should hold it underneath the first fret. I can't even get it underneath the G string, so that should say something. That's good. That's looking good. Okay. We'll check the string height. Checking my phone. Getting distracted. But let me go put these away real quick. Alright, center that up a little bit. So the string action at the 12th fret is about 95 thousandths on the bass string. We're sitting almost exactly 80 thousandths on the treble string. So it's maybe just a hair high in the bass string. I'll probably take that apart a little bit later and knock that out. I think we're going to be pretty much done with this for today. We've been running for almost 2 hours. And I think this is just about everything I'm going to be able to get done with this thing on stream. We're going to look at chat again. David says, when I was younger, I couldn't get a playable guitar at this relative price point, but at the time, Northern Era used Les Paul could be had for about what this cost. I think it's always funny when we talk about vintage guitars, because they're only popular because the people who were popular then used them, and the only reason they used them then was because they were cheap. Maybe excluding Martins, but generally that was It was what was available and what they could afford, up until somebody else famous was using it, and then it was time to use it. Alright, this thing is reasonably playable. It sounds okay. Sounds pretty good. I need to yet wax this top. The Renaissance wax will help with that quite a bit, but I'm not going to do that until I have done some finish fills here. I'm going to go ahead and trim these strings while I'm thinking about it. And we should be looking good. It's only been 2 hours that's been sitting, so I don't really want to pull that clamp off of there yet. I want to give it a little bit longer, so I'm 100% sure that glue is set. Once that glue is set, I will pull this off of here, do a little bit of finish fill, and then wax this whole thing. You know, do a tiny amount of sanding, make sure it fits, and then wax the whole thing and polish it all up, make sure it looks really good. Beyond that, this thing is playing good. It's got its nice set of strings. We got the saddle set well. That's pretty good. Put my pick back in my pocket, start cleaning up. Looking at chat. Eric says, that's why my first electric was a guitar, or my first electric guitar was a 63 Hofner Colorama. I have a Hofner. No, not a Hofner. I have a, what do I have? I have a Hondo. My first, well, no, not my first electric guitar, but somebody asked earlier about what the oldest guitar I own was, and it's probably this one. Let me go grab it. I don't get to show off my guitars very much. Undoubtedly, the oldest electric guitar I have is the old Hondo here. It's red. It's a 70s something. And it was given to me. And it needs cleaned. Wouldn't you believe that I spend all my time on other people's guitars and don't get to clean my own? But somebody asked what the oldest guitar was. It's probably this one. It's been changed. So much has been changed on this one, though. It's had all new frets put in. The pickups are probably new. But it's an old plywood guitar, and this thing is heavy. It is the heaviest guitar I own. It's heavier than the basses that I have around here. It's ridiculously heavy, and it's plywood multi-layer. You can see, I think you can see on the side. But yeah, that'd be it. Anyways, I think I'm going to try to wrap this up here. We've been going for almost 2 hours. We got quite a bit of work done on that thing. I think we had a good time. Hope you all enjoyed watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I have a whole lot of other work I got to get going. Gonna hopefully get out soon. Including, but not limited to, there's a Kalamazoo mandolin coming. Very cool, from the late 30s, early 40s. A couple of Guild guitars along the way. We should be looking good. So once again, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope I'll see you later. So long. Bye-bye.